began a series with you, this All In series. And when he started, he talked about what it means not to be all in. If you're not all in, what it looks like. And he told you a story about the rich young ruler and coming together and that whole kind of thing. And then last week, I think he talked to you a little bit about what it does look like to go all in. And it means when you go all in, you make a sacrifice. Because if something is really worth a sacrifice, if something is really worth it to you, you will do whatever it takes to get what you want. And you all know that. You have gone to special places in life to get that job. You wanted this job. And you sacrificed, you did whatever it took to get that job. Some of you wanted to buy a house, and you scrimped and you saved and you worked to get the house. You made sacrifices to get what you wanted. You know this in your home. When you wanted to get married, you knew that in order to get married, it was going to take special sacrifices, an extra amount of effort to make this whole thing happen. You did this for the girl that you wanted to date. Come on, guys. Some of you, your toothbrush hadn't seen water in weeks, and you sacrificed that toothbrush for that girl. We'll do whatever it takes to get it. We'll do it to save up money, to get a dream or a goal fulfilled in our life. We do whatever it takes to get the things that we want. We'll go the distance. And while we do all of these things in our life to get stuff or achieve goals and get to certain dreams in our life, let me ask you this. What about your faith? What about your relationship with Jesus Christ? How many sacrifices have you made to maintain and achieve and get and acquire a relationship with Jesus Christ? Because, see, that's the only sacrifice that really matters in your life. All the other things that you try to do, they fade away at some point in time. But how hard are you working at maintaining your relationship with Jesus Christ? Because, again, if we think something's really worth it, we will go the distance to make it happen. Let me show you a picture. Let me show you a picture up here on the screen. Back in 1948, Korczak Zylowski was commissioned by the Lakota chief Henry Standing Bear to carve out the statue of Crazy Horse. And I know that many of you in this room have gone to the Black Hills of South Dakota. You've seen the statue that is there in the foreground off to the left there. You see what the completed statue is supposed to look like. In the background, you see where it's at present day. We've all maybe driven by there on Highway 16 or whatever it is, and we've looked off, and you can see it right from the road. And Korczak started this project in about 1952. 1952, he starts on this, and he works on this Crazy Horse project for the next 30 years until his death in 1982. His family has taken up the cause, and now his family continues to work on this project. It's still going on today. They're raising the funds for it. They're still blasting away the stones to make this vision a reality that started way back in 1948. Their projected date of completion is the year 2050. Nearly 100 years after this dream comes to pass, the completion of this monument will be fulfilled. A family that has taken it in their heart to go the distance, to make the sacrifices, to see this dream come true. There's a story about somebody else going the distance. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Because going the distance means going all in. And when you go all in on something, you go all out. You'll see it today. You'll see people that go all in on being a fan of some football team. The camera will pan the crowd, and you'll see people shirtless and all painted up and all kinds of weird hats on their head. You can tell that as a fan, as a fanatic, they've gone all in. And as a result, they've gone all out. People will go to any measure, any extreme, any distance to get the things that they want. Yesterday morning at our men's prayer breakfast that meets every Saturday morning, Graham and Sharon, 7:30, shameless plug, I listened to a guy going all out, any distance, any measure, any extreme to get what you want. This guy, listen to this story. I'm not going to name his name, but this guy, he tells the story. He belly crawled for 150 yards, over hill, over dale. He hit the dusty trail with his gun belly crawling through the brush, over rocks, grass, and he got sore in his knees. I know he's in here right now, and I'm going to hear about this at the end of the service. And he did all of this to shoot a 700-pound elk. Do you know what you get when you shoot a 700-pound elk? A dead 700-pound elk. But apparently, he thought it was worth it. He would go to any measure, any extreme, any distance to get what it was that he wanted. What about your faith in Jesus Christ? What about keeping your marriage? What about getting the education? What about achieving the goal or the dream? And when you begin to follow Jesus, understand this. When you start to follow Jesus, when you begin to follow Jesus, there is no half-hearted approach to starting a journey with Jesus. You're all in or you're not in at all. And you're all in and you'll go all out, because if you're not all in, you won't get in. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Noah. You probably know this story. No matter what your interaction with the church might be, you've probably had some connection with the story of Noah and a flood that overcame the earth. This man named Noah, all the way back at the beginning of the Bible in the book of Genesis, chapter 6. Noah's commissioned by God to begin a journey, a task, to go the distance that will last, we speculate, as much as 120 years, to stay on task. And so at some point in Noah's life, God speaks to him. We don't get a lot of details about what the interaction was, when it took place. We just kind of get the overarching, the 10,000-foot picture. I would like to be in Noah's day. Like, God comes and speaks to you about building this huge boat. Like, was this like in the night after you had pizza the night before? Did you have a dream? Were you sitting around maybe having a cup of coffee, doing your devotions, and you kind of got this impression? Was there this loud, booming, audible voice from heaven? We don't know. But we know that God spoke to him. And in Genesis chapter 6, beginning in verse number 14, this is what God said when he spoke. He says, Noah, I want you to build a large boat from cypress wood, and I want you to waterproof it with tar inside and out, and then construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Now, the reason for this was because God was going to destroy humanity on the earth because it had become so wicked. And he'd destroy humanity with this flood. But he saw something about Noah. And he picks Noah because Noah was a righteous man. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And he commissions him for this task. A little backstory on this. Up to this point, when we read in Scripture, up to this point, it appears that it didn't rain in the days of Noah. That everything was watered from springs beneath the earth. I think the atmosphere and the environment of earth looked vastly different then than it does today. And so Noah is living in the middle of dry land, and in the middle of dry land, God asks Noah to build a boat. Seems logical, doesn't it, you know? Now he says in verse 15, I want you to make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Isn't it interesting that even today, when they build vessels to go out on the ocean, that the most stable vessels on the ocean are built on a ratio of 30 to 5 to 3. I wonder who came up with that ratio that just seems to work so well in turbulent waters. God commissioned Noah to build the ark on that ratio. The internal volume of the ark, when it was all completed according to those dimensions, would be more than 1.5 million cubic feet. To give you a little bit of a concept of the size of that, if you could go down here to the train depot and pick out 569 train boxcars, that's the volume of the ark. If you could average out the size of the animals that Noah would take on there, from an elephant to a mouse, and just take the average, if it was the size of a sheep, that would be room for 125,000 animals. Noah, build that boat. You know when God tells us to do something? And we've probably all heard God tell us to do something. It's an impression we got during the day. It's something we heard at church. It was a challenge we got from somebody in our life. Isn't it true that when we feel like we're supposed to do something, I mean, we kind of just know. We don't need some loud, booming, audible voice from heaven. We just know, and a lot of times it comes through common sense, what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. But so many times when God speaks, there's an element of fear on the inside of us. God, I'll take the second step, but first tell me what the first step is going to be. God says, no. Will you take a step? No, I want to know how this is all going to turn out. No, that's not how this works. You trust me. Are you all in? Are you willing to go the distance, or aren't you? And sometimes we get stuck in life. Listen, church, people get stuck in life. Some people have been serving Jesus for 50 years in their life. And they're at the same spiritual maturity level after 50 years of serving Jesus as the day they came to faith in Jesus Christ, because they've never been willing to take the step of faith. You know why? Because before we take a step of faith, before we're obedient, we want some more information. I want to know what's supposed to happen in this whole thing. But listen, let's just be honest. To have a better marriage, to be a better husband, a better wife, you don't need more information. I don't need more information. What we need is more obedience. Come on, isn't it true that with your health situation, come on, you don't need more information. You can get it on the internet, you can get it pamphlets, books, brochures, it's all over the place. We're flooded in our life with health information. We need more obedience. Come on, what about the relationship you're in right now? The way you're treating her, the way you're treating him. You don't need more information about how to be good in this relationship and what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing. You don't need more information, you need some more obedience. Isn't it true with finances? You don't need more information about how to handle money. People have talked to you about how to handle money. Pastors talked about how to handle money. The Bible talks about handling money. It's all over the place. We don't need more information. We need more obedience. What about the habit or the addiction that you're in? You don't need more information about this habit or this addiction. You've been flooded with information, probably out of the mouth of some little kid. You need more obedience. Generally, as a church, we don't need more information. I stand up here week by week. You've sat in the places of pastors preaching the Word of God to you. The church, in my opinion, in general, is far over informed and far under obedient. If you want God to do something new in your life, you just can't keep doing what you've always done. You might be just one decision away from making a totally different path in your life, but nothing's going to change unless we take an obedient step of faith like Noah did. So Noah builds this ark. He builds the boat. Coincidentally, if he hadn't, you and I wouldn't be here this morning. And look at the way verse 22 of that same chapter reads. So Noah did, say these two words with me, everything exactly as God had commanded him. The story goes on in the next chapter, chapter 7, verse number 1. When everything was ready, the Lord said to Noah, now I want you to go into the boat with all your family, for among all the people of the earth, I can see that you alone are righteous. What God was telling Noah in that moment is, Noah, I can tell through 120 years of obedience, all the years it's taken you to stay committed to the task of building this boat. You didn't cut down the first tree, get a splinter, drop a log on your foot and say, you know what, I think I've had enough of this. You kept on with the task. And because of that, I can tell you've gone the distance. You're all in with me in your heart. And because you're all in, you can get in. Salvation is coming to you. Do you understand the symbolism of the ark? Noah, his wife, the 3 boys and their wives, 8 people in all, out of the entire population of the earth at the time in the book of Genesis, get to go on the ark, and they are saved as a result of the ark. Because they were all in, they got to go in. Today, we don't have an ark or a boat like this. We have Jesus Christ. Jesus says, come to me, you who are weak and heavy laden, you who are weary. Come. If you're all in, you can get in. Jesus is looking for followers that are all in. The people that share heaven with you for all eternity are the followers of Jesus Christ that were willing to go the distance because they were all in for all their lives. A lot of people start the journey. A lot of people start the race. The starter pistol sounds and they start running with Jesus. But somewhere along the line, because of distractions, because of dismay, because of anger and hurt, forgiveness and disappointment, they abandon the race. They haven't been all in, and they're not going to get in. Anybody can start the race. You got to finish the race. Noah found favor with God. You know what favor is? Favor is the kind of stuff I want from God. Favor is the stuff that God can do for you that you can't do for yourself. Favor is the open doors of opportunity that you couldn't open yourself. Favor is turning opposers into supporters. It's making a way where there seems to be no way. And you know how you find favor with God? All of us in this room are candidates to the equal degree to find favor with God. You know how you find it? It's surrendering your life completely to the lordship of Jesus Christ. It's not about surrendering to information. It's about surrendering to Jesus. In verse number 5 of chapter 7, once again it says, so Noah did everything as the Lord commanded him. I'd encourage you, church, to position yourself for God's favor in your life by being obedient to him. Doing the things you know you're supposed to do and stop doing the things you know you should stop doing. Going the distance with anything just begins with being obedient. Just one choice at a time. Come on, if you got a home here, I think isn't it true that if we want a happy home, we just know there's certain principles that we should be obedient to. We go the distance with obedience to make a happy home, to make a happy and healthy marriage. There are certain ways we want to feel about ourselves. We want to have self-respect. We want to have dignity. We want to feel valued and worth and affirmed. And in order to do that, we just make some obedient and wise choices on a daily basis. And we do it today, on this day in November, and we do it tomorrow, and we do it on Tuesday, and we do it on Wednesday, and we just continue on day by day. You know that if you want to complete your education, you want to get the diploma, you want to get the degree, you just know that there are certain disciplines you need to be obedient to in order to make that happen in your life. To overcome the things that want to overcome you. And, you know, faith and obedience, I pondered this for a little bit. Faith and obedience are like cousins, really close cousins. And here's why. Because to be obedient, isn't it true to be obedient to God and to things God puts in your heart and just to the principles in life? To be obedient, it takes faith. Because the reason that you're tracking a certain way in your life is because this is what you know. If I want to track a different direction that will take me to better destinations, I'm going to have to do things I've never done before. I don't think I'll do that. I think I'll just keep doing the things I've done because this I know. So obedience takes faith, and faith takes, you can say it with me if you want to, faith takes obedience. And sometimes when we take steps of faith and acts of obedience, we're going to look foolish. Noah, what you doing there? Building the boat? Oh, for where? For the flood. I see. What flood? Well, the flood's coming. It's going to raise the boat up off the ground. Noah, do you know how far away you are from any body of water? Yeah, I know, but it's coming. Right. Yeah. You give how much money to the church? You give 10% of your money to the church? Like, what kind of a cult is that anyway? You give how much to the church? Do you realize with 10% of your income, you could buy a boat? You don't let your kids go to watch what kind of movies? Wow. Must be real fun living in your house. What are you doing this morning? Like, why were you up so early? I went out on a jog. I just started this routine where I'm out kind of jogging and exercising, and then I just get back to the house and spend some time reading the Word of God and just taking time to listen to Him. What? That's like, what kind of a cult did you join? See, sometimes being obedient makes us look foolish. And in the Bible, though, some of the best Bible stories I read are the ones where people, through their faith and their obedience, were willing to look foolish. Oh, there was a woman named Sarah. Sarah's married to a man named Abraham. They couldn't have any children. They tried to have children in other ways. They couldn't have any children. God said, you're going to have a child of your own, Sarah. And they waited and they waited and they waited to have this child. They did everything a married couple's supposed to do to have this child. Sarah finally has a baby when she's 90 years old. How many know that a 90-year-old woman toting around a baby might look a little funny? Guy named David runs after a giant, 9 feet tall. David was maybe 5 feet tall. And he doesn't come after him with an AK-47. He's got a slingshot and a little tiny rock. Running out in the middle of the battlefield, I'll bet you he looked a little bit foolish when he acted by faith. Oh, one day there was a whole group of people called Israelites that marched around the city of Jericho because they wanted to conquer the city. They didn't have any weapons. They didn't have any bulldozers. They didn't have any wrecking balls. None of that. They just walked silently around the city all week long. People inside the city probably thought they looked a little bit foolish. But on the seventh day, the walls of Jericho came smashing right down. A guy named Moses goes before the most powerful man in the world. His name was Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He says, Pharaoh, you're supposed to let my people go. Let them out of the bondage of slavery, because I'm going to take them out in the wilderness, and we're going to worship the God of gods and the King of kings. Little Moses had no position, no power, no authority to do that. Did he look foolish? You bet he did. And I just say this, church, if none of us in this room, if we're not willing to look foolish, then we are foolish. If we're not willing to look foolish, then we are foolish. And that's why so many people never built an ark. The day they left this world looked just like the day they came into this world. None of them reached their potential. None of them did what God asked them to do. You can't journey to new experiences in life, church. You can't journey to new experiences in life. You can't do anything new, anything different, anything outstanding until you and I are willing to leave sight and lose sight of the shore that we cling so closely to and go out into the vast ocean of faith and obedience. Hebrews chapter 11, verse number 7 says this about Noah. It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. And then I love the second part of the verse. He obeyed God who warned him about things that had never happened before. That's a step of faith. Going all out means going the distance, and going the distance means you come under the lordship of Jesus Christ. And you come under the lordship of Jesus Christ with everything all of the time. With everything all of the time. As a pastor, probably nothing breaks my heart as much as seeing people begin the journey with Jesus. Excited, passionate. They can see the potential and how life could be so much better with Jesus. But then something happens that trips them up in their faith. They put Jesus back here in their hip pocket. I listened to a statement by some celebrity on TV just last night that I think personifies kind of the attitude and the mindset of a lot of believers and Christians in the world. When they said, I will say a prayer, but I like to have my shot of whiskey too. That's a half-hearted approach to following Jesus Christ. It has nothing to do with the consumption of alcohol. It's rather the perception of an attitude that I want Jesus, but I want all of this at the same time. Jesus said, if you're not all in, you're not all in. I'm looking for people that are all in. If you start the journey with Jesus Christ, there's no half-hearted approach to the whole thing. It's going all out for God. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It doesn't seek 15 minutes of shame. It seeks eternal glory, and it doesn't care about the applause of the public opinion. It cares about the applause that comes from nailed, scarred hands that says, come on, you can go the distance. You can do this. You can journey in your faith. You can do this. You can serve out your life with Jesus. You can make it in this marriage. You can make it in your heart. You can make it in your home. You can do it with your education. You can do it with your faith walk with Jesus. You can do this, and Jesus applauds us. In fact, at the end of the faith chapter and the beginning of the next one, in chapter 12, it says Jesus stands at the finish line. And all the witnesses stand around us to applaud us on this journey. Korczak Zalowski. I know I probably didn't say the name correctly. The guy who started carving out the monument of Crazy Horse. Listen to what he said. When your life is over, the world will ask you only one question. Did you do what you're supposed to do? That's the question for all of us. And I don't know what it is you're supposed to do. That's between you and God. But I know one thing we're supposed to do, all of us, is finish the journey. Will you go all in with me by going all out for God? What decisions do you need to make today to be all in? All in your marriage, all in your heart for the sake of dignity, all in with your future, all in to have peace of mind, just all in with a relationship with Jesus. Have you allowed stumbling blocks or barriers to keep you from being all in? And come on, this isn't about blaming somebody else. This isn't about blaming a culture or a society or grandma and grandpa or my parents. These are the things that go on right here on the inside of our heart. The things that go on inside of our head. This is where the battle is for us, that keeps us from going all in. But I'm telling you, church, I'm telling you, if anything is worth it, we will sacrifice whatever it takes to see the goal fulfilled in our life. If heaven is really worth it, if heaven is really worth it to you, if Jesus is really worth it to you, if you love Jesus that much, if it means that much to you, be obedient to Jesus, you go all in with me. You go all in. And maybe while we're reading this story, God has already brought things to your mind that needs to end or begin in your life to be all in with Jesus. Maybe this morning you're even half-hearted with Jesus. And today's the decision to go all in with him. Maybe God has put a call in your life. Some of the most miserable people I've ever met in my life, some of the most miserable, cantankerous people in the church, and don't think about any certain people, are the ones who had a clear call of God on their life to follow him into ministry or missions, but out of fear or maybe wanting more information or because of lack of obedience, they never fulfilled the call. And now they're selling used cars, making trouble for the pastor. Will you go all in today?